Hello, I'm Cameron with Gale Force 9 with our second video in our How to Play series of Dune. Each turn in a game of Dune consists of 9 phases. We're going to explain what goes on in each of these phases today. First up is the Storm phase. The last 2 players who use the battle wheels each independently dial a number from 1 to 3 and then move the storm along the track, the total number of spaces. Pay attention to the sectors that the storm passes over. Any forces or spice caught in sand territories, with the exception of the Imperial Basin, which is protected by the shield wall, will be destroyed. Any sectors in the storm for that turn are essentially on lockdown, as forces can't move into or out of the storm, and no battles can take place in any sectors covered by the storm. Note that some territories cover multiple sectors, such as the Minor Erg, so the storm may only affect part of a territory at a time. The storm never affects the polar sink. The storm also determines the first player for the duration of the turn. This affects other phases such as bidding and movement. The first player is whoever has their token closest to the front edge of the storm. In this case, it is the Bene Gesserit. The next phase is the Spice Blow. Reveal the top card on the spice deck. This determines which territory receives spice for the turn. The amount of spice specified on the card is then placed on the board at the specified Spice Blow point. Then discard the spice card face up to the discard pile. If the Spice Blow is in the storm, then no spice can be placed. For the first turn of the game, set aside any sandworm cards that are drawn and keep going until a territory card appears. Then shuffle the sandworm cards back into the deck. For every other turn, the sandworm card signals the appearance of the mighty sandworm itself, which attacks the territory shown by the card on top of the discard pile. The sandworm destroys all spice and troops currently in the territory. Following a sandworm attack, another spice card is drawn. Discard any more sandworms until you get a territory card, and then place the spice as normal. Following a Spice Blow phase, where a sandworm card has been drawn, a nexus occurs. The full rules around alliances will be covered in another video, but for now, just know that this is the only time that alliances can be made, or broken. Following this, we have the CHOAM charity phase. Any player with only 0 or 1 spice can ask for CHOAM charity and bring their total spice up to 2. Phase 4 is the bidding phase. This is where players can acquire more treachery cards to use. At the start of the phase, all players must declare truthfully how many treachery cards they have. The hand limit is 4, and any players with 4 cards must pass during bidding. One of the players then deals cards from the treachery deck face down in a row. 1 card for every player allowed to bid. The first card, still face down, is then auctioned off for spice. The bidding is started by the first player, or if they have 4 treachery cards, then the next eligible player to the right. The first player must bid 1 or more spice or else pass. The next player must either raise the bid or pass, and bidding continues until a top bid is reached and all other players have passed. Then the winner pays the spice to the spice bank and takes the card. Think fast. You only have 10 seconds to place your bid, or you automatically pass. For the next card, bidding is begun by the player to the right of whoever went last. So every player gets a chance to go first. The bidding phase ends when all cards are auctioned off, or all players pass on any 1 card. If this happens, then the remaining cards are discarded and the round ends. Pay attention to your faction-specific rules, especially as the Harkonnen, Atreides, or Emperor, who all have rules that affect this phase. After bidding concludes, players move on to the revival phase. This is where players can revive up to 3 forces from the Telexau tanks. Players can revive a certain number for free. This depends on the faction and can be found on each player's reference sheet. Any extra forces that you want to revive must be paid for to the spice bank, at the cost of 2 spice per force. You are still limited to 3 revivals a turn, free or otherwise. The revived forces go straight to the player's reserve. Players also use the phase to revive their leaders. If all 5 of your leaders are in the tanks, you can revive 1 per turn, paying each leader's fighting strength and spice each time. For example, to revive Duncan Idaho would cost 2 spice. However, if a leader is killed again, then place them back into the tanks face down. You won't be able to revive them until all your other leaders currently in the tanks have been revived, then killed again. Phase 6 is the shipping and movement phase, while Phase 7 is combat. Both of these are quite involved phases, and we'll cover them in detail in a later video. The second to last phase is spice collection. Any player who has forces in a territory which has spice may now collect it. The collection rate is 3 spice for each force in the territory, if you control Carthage or Arakeen with the superior collection equipment, or 2 spice for each force normally. Any uncollected spice stays where it is. Finally, we have the Mentat Phase. This is where you evaluate the board and see if any player or alliance has won. If a player controls 3 strongholds with at least 1 force, then they win and become the ultimate master of Dune. If players are in an alliance, then that alliance wins if they control the required number of strongholds that was decided at the start of the game. Some suggestions for game variations around alliance winning conditions can be found in the rulebook. Some factions have their own unique ways to win that are explained on their faction reference cards, and we'll dive into in a later video. If no one has won, then move the turn marker along 1 space and start again from the storm phase. Thanks for joining us for the second video in our How to Play series of Dune. Dune is available to pre-order now from our online store. Follow GF9 on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date with all the latest news.